Thank you for joining us today. Very much looking forward to our conversation with Michael Denham from BDC. Thank you for taking the time. We're looking forward to hearing what Michael has to share with us. We know that he and his colleagues throughout the country have been working very closely with small and medium businesses and certainly entrepreneurs throughout the country since the pandemic struck back in March. So I would like to take this opportunity to introduce Michael. Michael Denham is the President and CEO of BDC, the Bank of Canadian Entrepreneurs. He leads a team of 2,400 people across Canada who work every day to help entrepreneurs by guiding them and offering the financial support that they need to build resilient, growing businesses. A seasoned business leader with more than 30 years of senior management experience, Mr. Denham has held senior roles at McKinsey, Bombardier, Accenture, and Aquaterra before joining BDC. He's a strong supporter and promoter of small and medium-sized businesses and the impact that they make to our economy. Welcome, Michael.
Good afternoon, AnnMarie. How are you?
I'm grand. I'm very much looking forward to what you have to share with us today.
Well, it's nice to be here. And just before, I know we have, we'll go through some questions that I hope that the folks watching it have questions too. But before I start, I just want to compliment you and the Board of Trade. These past few months have been so difficult in so many ways, especially for entrepreneurs. And having groups like yours that find a way to get entrepreneurs together so they can network, learn, support each other since March has been invaluable. And I think you and the team do a great job. You play an important role. And I want to thank you for having me today.
Well, thank you very much for that. I certainly appreciate it. And I thank you for taking time out of your schedule and being here with us today. I'm sure that there are many people online with us right now who are keen to hear what you have to share and the experiences that you've experienced firsthand with entrepreneurs throughout the country. So if you are comfortable, Michael, I will launch right in with our first question. So the format for today will be Michael and I will run through a few questions, and then we will certainly open it up to our virtual floor. And if there's anyone out there who would like to submit a question via chat, you are welcome to do so. And Michael will share his experience and any insight that he can add to answer your questions that you're wondering. So Michael, I know, we've been certainly reading a lot about what you and your team have been doing and, and the assistance that you've been offering entrepreneurs since the pandemic started back in March. But recently you conducted a study looking at what entrepreneurs have been doing to adapt to the new reality. Can you share some of those findings with us?
Sure, AnnMarie, delighted to. And this week it's Small Business Week. And it's something actually the BDC started back in the late 70s. And it's grown like topsy over the years. And even BDC alone, we're involved in hundreds of events like this over the course of the week. And it's a chance to celebrate entrepreneurs, celebrate entrepreneurship, the innovation, the creativity, certainly these days, the resilience and the courage. And AnnMarie, as food for thought every year, we do some research and feed that research into Small Business Week. So we have a bit of a national dialogue with respect to the topic. So and my colleagues, Stephen Barker and Mike Ball, are on this call. I think many of you on the phone would know them. And I encourage you, if you'd like to learn more about this or any other topics that come up this afternoon, I'd encourage you to reach out to both Stephen and Mike. But AnnMarie, to answer your question, we researched over 1,000 entrepreneurs across the country. And we put to them a very simple question, and this was the research. As we live in this time of pandemic and hopefully recover soon, what are your priorities? Very simple question. And Ashley, you can put up the page now. There were 5 priorities that basically came out of the research. And I'll go through each in turn. They're fairly self-evident, but it is, I think, pretty good confirmation and a way for entrepreneurs to do a bit of a gut check versus the agendas that they're pursuing. So the first one is improving the financial position. And that largely focuses on the balance sheet. And as you all know, since March, it's been really, there's so much uncertainty. It's been hard to plan, so many curveballs, so many really difficult challenges for people to deal with. And you look at your accounts receivable, your accounts payable, look at your levels of debt, et cetera. And there is an awful lot of cleanup that has to get done. So cleaning up the balance sheet, finding a way to reestablish margins, really is job number one, as you can see from the page, with respect to the entrepreneurs we surveyed. The second is to increase investment in technology. And the backdrop to this is the following. I think many entrepreneurs were forced to shrink their business quite dramatically, certainly back in the April-May timeframe in response to COVID. And as a result, they needed to take advantage of wage subsidy and other programs, but it had the effect of seeing them reduce their headcount and resourcing. And entrepreneurs are concluding, as they now turn to kind of hiring back folks and getting ready for the future, they want to do that on the leanest, best possible base. And that's what's driving this investment in technology. So whether it's software or shop floor automation or robotics or just mobile tools, lots of investments taking place now in order to kind of it's a once in a generation opportunity to kind of put in place that lean basis on which to hire back. The third is increasing the use of telework. We've all been working remotely almost as a country since March. At BDC, for example, bit by bit, our folks were reopening our business centers, but by and large, apart from 5% or so of our people, people are continuing to choose to work remotely. So as a country, we've begun to perfect the art of being productive while working remotely. So I think telework is here to stay for all of us. I don't think the new normal, to use that term, is going to be kind of 5 days working out of the office. I don't think it's going to be 5 days working back in the office. It's going to be a combination of the two, but having telework as a capability is going to become important. So I encourage everybody listening to make sure that you continue to think about the investments you need to make, the training, the culture building, to allow yourselves to lead kind of great companies in an environment where telework becomes more the norm. The fourth is increasing online sales. And you know, there's some facts that really interest me. One is half of Canadian businesses, 500,000 Canadian businesses don't have a website. Half of Canadians purchased online for the first time since March. And Canada's always been a bit of a laggard with respect to other developed countries, with respect to how kind of digital and how e-commerce enabled our economy is. But all that is changing. And all these people that bought online for the first time since March, guess what? They liked it, and they're going to want more of it. So it is important for all companies, I think, to get ready to and establish themselves with a presence online so they can transact online. And the two key points to note here: one, there's a technology capability point of just standing up the functionality so you can transact. But frankly, what's much more important is making sure that you find a way to stand out and allow your current customer and retain the loyalty you built from your current customers so they work with you online, but also kind of stand out so you begin to reach new markets and new geographies in what is a very competitive online world. And then the last point, AnnMarie, and back to you after this, is expand the business. This isn't applying to all entrepreneurs. I think a lot of entrepreneurs that are in the tourism sector, for example, or have businesses that depend on air travel, aren't thinking about expanding their businesses right now. But there are some sectors that are strong. Food processing is strong, tech is strong, and people are now shifting gears towards expanding the business. And we see it in terms of investments we're discussing with our clients for new buildings, for mergers and acquisitions, for investments in R&D and new product. So bit by bit, as we had a little bit more certainty for some of these sectors, folks' aspirations are now shifting back to expanding their business.
Thank you for that. You know, certainly even hearing you walk through those priorities, it is very much a snapshot that aligns with the conversations we're hearing from members in the sense of where they're focused and the areas that they're looking to improve as we head into what 2021 and all of the uncertainty that comes with that it will look like. Our next question, Michael, is how is BDC helping entrepreneurs with these 5 priorities? Particularly, you just mentioned, almost 40% of entrepreneurs said that financial recovery and the financial health, certainly, of their business is a priority for them. So what is BDC doing to encourage small and medium enterprises to evolve?
So let me answer this in the context. BDC is a Crown Corporation. I think you know that. So I'm going to answer this in the context of the role we're playing with respect to other federal support programs. And we are doing our best. I suspect there are some folks on the call, as is inevitable, where we haven't been fast, we haven't been responsive, we haven't produced the outcomes you wanted. But we do try to do our best and make sure that we are able to support all those companies that are able to absorb credit to move their businesses forward. But if you go back to March, the first thing that the government announced as the gravity of the economic situation became clear was a recapitalization of EDC and a recapitalization of BDC. And the purpose of that recapitalization was to have us lend more, extend more credit. So what happened was over the course of I think it was the last 2 weeks in August, or sorry, last 2 weeks in March, or the last week in March, first week in April, we had as many requests for loans as we tend to get in a year. And a lot of what we do is automated, not all. So we move people all over BDC to address the bottlenecks to be as responsive as possible. Frankly, I don't think we were as responsive as we needed to. We did our best. We worked hard, worked long hours, worked thoroughly, streamlined things. But there were many entrepreneurs that had to wait, frankly, too long for an answer. But then over time, AnnMarie, what's happened is, and folks on this call would know this, is that a series of other measures have kicked into gear. So Ottawa has put in place the CEBA program, which is a mix of grants and interest-free loans. They put in place and refined the wage subsidy program. They've done a significant overhaul to the rent relief program. So all these programs are providing the combination of grants and interest-free loans to entrepreneurs. And frankly, this should be the first place that every entrepreneur goes if they're eligible for support. Secondarily now, as companies do need access to credit to grow, that's where we fit in. So we've done about $2.5 billion of loans, which is way above what we normally do since March started, both through our online channel and through our business centers that Stephen and Mike are responsible for here. And at the same time, if there are any tech entrepreneurs on the call, you'd know that we're actually Canada's largest venture capital investor. So we've really significantly increased the amount of investing we're doing to VC-backed companies. And then finally, AnnMarie, we have a advisory services part of BDC, where we provide advice to clients. And we put in place a program we're calling Access, which is basically pretty high quality, free of charge consultation with one of our experts for entrepreneurs. So that's the nature of the response that we've put in place. It complements the support that the federal government's providing and the provincial government. And right now, I feel as though we're able to respond both in terms of volume and speed to the expectations of entrepreneurs.
2.5 billion is quite a significant number. When we looked at the study, Michael, that you shared, 21% of SMEs have no plans to make any changes to their business practices in the current environment. Do you have any advice, or what would you say to those entrepreneurs who are not planning to make any changes?
I mean, part of me is kind of wake up and smell the coffee, because the world has changed. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs, frankly, I think a lot of us, frankly, would just love to go back to the way the world used to be before the middle of March. But it's not going to happen. And to those 21%, I say a couple of things. One, look at your business, and there are many things that you've been forced to improve and get better at since March. I just look at BDC, for example, and there are so many things that were unsolvable before March, all of a sudden we solved. So lots of things, I bet you're better, you're faster, you're more responsive, you're more creative, you're more focused, you're more on top of your cash flow planning. All those things, in many cases, resulted from the pressure we've been under since March, and need to preserve those things because it makes your business better. And then secondly, we need to recognize that the challenge we're in, the environment we're in is going to endure for a while. And for some companies, that's good because prospects are good and they shouldn't be doing nothing. They should be doing something to grow. And for other companies, in tourism, for example, where it's not clear when the recovery is going to fully come back, you're going to need to do more to make sure your business continues to survive and get through this. So for those 21%, I think they may have misread the question, because it makes no sense to me why any entrepreneur anywhere would plan to do nothing given what we've been through.
So that 21% was certainly a higher number than you would have predicted.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think it's a bit of wishful thinking, right? Hopefully, if we kind of do nothing and just hunker down, we'll get back to the way things were, but it's just not going to happen that way.
Yeah, I think more and more people are realizing riding it out is not an option.
Right, right.
I guess it's the degree to which how quickly you make peace with that decision. Our next question, Michael. So you have a national presence. BDC is from coast to coast here in Canada, and you work with over 60,000 business owners across Canada. How would you describe the entrepreneur's situation and impact of COVID-19 in Atlantic Canada compared to the rest of the country?
That's a good question, because we are able to compare and contrast the regions. We're in an interesting position in that regard, AnnMarie. And I think the fact that you kind of have the Atlantic bubble, which seems to be working, and your fellow citizens are respecting the guidelines of public health authorities, puts you, frankly, in a much better position than what I'm enduring here in Montreal. So we, in Newfoundland and Labrador, it's actually it has disproportionate importance to us at BDC, because for all sorts of historic reasons, on average, we tend to work with about, depending on the region, anywhere between kind of 5 and 10% of entrepreneurs. In Newfoundland and Labrador, it's almost twice that. So I get the fact that the economy is relatively small compared to the rest of Canada, but for us, it's actually a very important region of the country and geography. So when we look at the situation, again, the situation is, I think in every region, there's a bit of a, not good news, bad news, but some sectors that are kind of growing quite nicely and others that continue to be challenged. Yeah. In Newfoundland, for example, in Labrador, food, I'm going to look down at some of my notes to get the figures right. But again, the manufacturing sector, especially in food, is back nicely, and employment's at about 112% of where it was. Exports from food products from Newfoundland are up about 160% over the past 6 months. The tech sector, though small, continues to grow quite nicely, and investing funds continue to flow. Lumber, not that it's huge, is benefiting from high prices, the fishery, et cetera. So there are some parts of the economy that are coming back. Retail sales, for example, were at 107% of their February level. That said, construction is soft. That's about 78% of where it was. On average in Canada, it's close to 90%. And tourism is down kind of across the board. So we look at that as a similar picture to the picture that we see in other regions. Depending on the importance of the industries, the balance is a bit different. There are, and then overall, if we look at Canada, we don't see, most economists agree, the overall Canadian GDP getting back to its pre-COVID level until kind of late 22, early 23, in large part because some of these more interaction intensive industries will take a while to get back to where they were.
Okay, thank you for that, because when you sit in Atlantic Canada, the Atlantic Canadian perspective is very important and very helpful, certainly. Michael, my next question is, as you talk to entrepreneurs throughout the network, any recent entrepreneurial story or any anecdote that you've been shared that really kind of demonstrates how business can pivot or innovate and continue to grow? I know myself here, there are really interesting stories, just bubbling up in the sense of what entrepreneurs have done that are kind of unique or really a little bit of show-stopping in the sense of, the creativity that that they're demonstrating.
Oh yeah, I mean, I bet you if we were to have time to kind of do a bit of a roundtable with folks listening in right now, I bet you each and every entrepreneur on the call would have an example of creativity, innovation, resilience that allowed them to do something. And certainly that's a big theme of Small Business Week this week. But one entrepreneur we know well is Dion Finley. You probably know Leaside Group of Companies as well. And that's a combination kind of hotel, spa, et cetera. And again, given even with the Atlantic bubble, given the decline in kind of tourism, business activity, et cetera, kind of they made a call to almost reorient the use of that great space they have away from kind of hoteling combination, et cetera, towards professional activities, kind of dental work, for example. So again, looking at the high quality asset they had and saying, look, the use of that asset that we've had for the past number of years isn't going to come back for a while. So what are some ways we can kind of repurpose that high quality asset, make it available to others who represent more stable revenue sources and stable streams of the economy? And that's what they've done. And again, it's a great example of taking advantage of a great asset and a big challenge and finding a way to create some new revenues out of it. But again, there's so many stories. You've heard so many stories, I suspect, as well, of great entrepreneurs that have been innovative, creative, resilient at the same time, and found a way to make the revenues continue to flow, notwithstanding all the challenges that have surrounded us since mid-March.
Yeah, we've had remarkable examples of what people in the community and how entrepreneurs are really digging in and demonstrating their perseverance. In fact, Michael, I'm not sure if I mentioned this to you, but we've just kind of renamed our business excellence awards that we host every year to the Business Resilience Awards. And we're really just looking at measuring success differently this year, and we're not looking at numbers or sales. We're just doing that. We're celebrating examples of creative, innovative things that entrepreneurs are doing to just survive and to succeed despite 2020 is almost how it feels.
Right.
I will pause at this time and just invite anyone who has a question for you, certainly to put it in the chat there so that we can, I will certainly ask you on their behalf. But I will, if it's okay with you, just continue with a couple of more. How do you see the economy, Michael, and the recovery going forward, both in Newfoundland, if you have that perspective for Newfoundland and Labrador, as well as the rest of Canada? And added to that, is there anything that you believe business owners should be expecting about the future?
So as I mentioned, AnnMarie, the overall, like the macroeconomic picture for Canada is that our chief economist and others expect us to get back to where we were sometime late 22, early 23. And what's really kind of driving that relatively slow pace is the COVID, non-COVID related uncertainty, which is having a dampening effect on investment and also a real dampening effect on consumer behavior. And there's some where it's going to take a while to kind of get back into the kind of buying mode we were in before. Now, what it means though for individual companies, is quite different. And what's kind of unique, if you will, about the nature of this slow, choppy, uncertain recovery we're in, is that for some sectors, it's actually quite a buoyant recovery. And I mentioned tech, food processing, et cetera, before. So my advice for companies that have, again, a fairly buoyant market, very buoyant demand, is to take advantage of it and expand your capacity, expand your equipment, take advantage of M&A opportunities, kind of hire, but kind of get your mojo back, get back into that growth mode, because again, for certain key sectors, this growth is going to be with us for a while. And I want to make sure that entrepreneurs, especially Newfoundland and Labrador, take advantage of the opportunities that face them. However, for other sectors, most notably tourism, accommodation, anything airline related, the recovery is going to be slow and choppy, and the formula there needs to be quite different. And again, for folks here, the kind of creativity is going to be very important. I'd encourage you to take absolute and full advantage of the government programming that's being offered in terms of rent, CEBA, wage subsidy, et cetera, as well. Just make sure that you kind of stay really on top of your cash flows, so that you, in a very honest rather than wishful thinking way, so they're able to kind of foresee when you're going to come under kind of real pressure, because the earlier you can act, the earlier you can kind of preempt that pressure and find a way to continue and get through to a more stable future. But again, I wish I had some my magic wand or some silver bullets, but there are some sectors where, frankly, we just need to be honest with ourselves. It's going to be hard for the next period of time, and entrepreneurs need to kind of organize themselves accordingly.
Okay, and you may have answered my next question, but I will throw it to you just in the event that it is a little bit different. But when we think about kind of the number one piece of advice that you would give business owners who are listening and who are joining us today, what's the thing that you would tell them to do next?
It's a bit of the it is a bit of what I just said. In the sense that for the entrepreneurs whose businesses are in markets that are just a bit, where the demand for what they do is a bit flat, it's frankly all about your mindset. And I mean, especially in Newfoundland and Labrador, I've always been struck by just the resilience and the mutual support that exists. Again, some of the techniques I described in terms of cash flow are important, but just kind of have that mindset of kind of resilience and going forward. And then for the other entrepreneurs that have, again, some upside in terms of the markets they sell into, just seize the moment, take advantage of them, because kind of they're real, and it can really position your business in a different way if you act fast and take advantage of the opportunities.
Solid advice. Michael, what about someone who might be in the process right now of getting a business off the ground, or kind of working through early days? I know we've heard from a couple of partners that we've been working with that there are a few entrepreneurs who've, done a little bit of an assessment and decided now's not the time. Would you again say that that's industry dependent, or what would you advise to someone who might be at that stage?
I think it is a bit industry dependent. And the way I'd encourage folks to think about it is, what does your line of sight look like for your first 12 months of revenue? Because if nothing's ever certain, but if you have line of sight and you can see a path through to that, then you will be able to kind of get yourself going and have some momentum. But if it's a bit of a kind of build it and they will come type approach to a business, it is pretty risky to do that now. So as you're fleshing out your idea, make sure you spend some high quality time too thinking about actions that you can take to get not certainty, but some confidence that you have line of sight to that first 12 months of revenue. So
not necessarily to have to abandon kind of that dream right now.
Right, exactly.
Just kind of do a forensic on it. Okay. You may have mentioned this already, Michael, as well, but I do want to be really sure that we're providing you with an opportunity to share any information about any financial relief that might be available, because I certainly, from my perspective and the conversations that I have with members and entrepreneurs in our community, the cash flow crunch is very real, and the dependence on, any of the government programs that have been available has certainly been very real.
Yeah.
So since the beginning, I know BDC has been heavily involved in providing financial relief for small business. Are there any examples, or can you walk us through some of the support measures now that are available?
Yep, sure. So again, place to start. I must say I'm not as familiar with provincial AnnMarie support as I should be.
No, that's okay.
But in terms of our world, the federal world, again, the place to start is the CEBA program, which the government's increased. So now it's up to $60,000, of which $20,000 is a grant, and that's the $40,000 is interest free. The wage subsidy program, I know, has been highly used across the country as a way to allow folks to kind of keep their teams. The rent relief program, which is particularly important for retailers and providers of accommodation, kind of has been upgraded, and that's present. And all those are grant and interest-free support. So it's the right place to start. And when you look at credit, there's both EDC and again, we've upgraded our capital base, et cetera. So we have much more capacity to lend than has ever been the case. And when we think about this with our clients, the lens that everybody should have is that it doesn't help anybody for a company that frankly isn't creditworthy and can't see itself able to bear the cost of debt. It doesn't help anybody for that company to take on credit. So we like to work very carefully with clients and entrepreneurs to make sure that the plan that's in place can actually support credit being extended, because if it can't, again, it's in nobody's best interest to proceed. And at the same time, the chartered banks are part of what's called, this is the third type of support, AnnMarie, what's called the Business Credit Availability Program, where EDC and BDC together are providing kind of loan guarantees and support. And the intent of this is to make it easier for banks to extend credit to the kind of higher risk part of their client base. Now, frankly, it hasn't been as tapped into as I would have expected to see. But again, the program's out there, it's in place for a while. So I do encourage entrepreneurs to get in touch or get back in touch with their banks to explore that. Then the last form of support, AnnMarie, is the, and this is something I do encourage people to think about, is we have literally a ton of incredibly relevant tools and articles, perspective, advice that are all available for free on bdc.ca. So tools and models around cash flow management, best practice cases around how to set up an online capability and how to make sure that kind of stands out in the crowd. So it's bdc.ca, tools and articles. And I think almost regardless of what your question is, there's something there that would serve as a pretty good answer. So I encourage folks listening to take advantage of that free resource and tap into it.
That's great to know. Actually, when we share this webinar after with our membership, we'll include a link to that as well, because I think kind of tracking down the information is proving to be half the battle. Right. I think the other half certainly is that I don't know if we've ever been more inundated with information than we are right now, and trying to find the time and to be able to piece through that is certainly proving to be a challenge, and something certainly we're trying to help members with, and to access information certainly pertaining to the programs that you just mentioned. Yeah. Our provincial government has launched a small business support program in our recent budget a few weeks ago as well, and that's very much aimed at businesses that are 99 employees and less. Yeah. And built around doing exactly what you were just describing, in the sense of trying to help certainly with some of the costs that have been incurred directly related to the pandemic. Yeah.
And my colleague Jeff just posted the link, so I'd encourage folks to take note of that.
That's perfect. Thank you for doing that, Jeff. Are there any trends, Michael, that you've seen or have been kind of observing as we ride through what this new normal kind of feels like? Anything that you're seeing that is consistent across the board, or anything that you'd give advice?
I think there are the three that I'd want to highlight. One is, and I've touched on these already. One is we should expect that consumer demand is going to be constrained for a while. And just for reasons of want to kind of preserve resources in the bank account for uncertainty, or habits having changed and kind of shopping less. The consumers are going to be spending less than they have historically in the months ahead. The second trend is, I've talked about this before, so I won't belabor it, this trend towards online transactions and having e-commerce capability. But the third trend, which is, and Kathy Bennett, I'm fortunate that Kathy Bennett serves one of our directors, and she and I have had many conversations about this, so I think it's actually quite pronounced in Newfoundland and Labrador, is the increased localization of supply chains. I think the world over the past couple of decades really was on the agenda of highly efficient global supply chains, low-cost sourcing, limited redundancy. And what we've seen is there is a lot of both geopolitical and kind of pandemic-related risk in that strategy around supply chains. So you are seeing a shift towards more local supply chains, buy local, local supplies in food chain. I know in the PPE front, there's been a real, very, very positive push in Newfoundland to ensure there is kind of local supply chain around key kind of healthcare related resources. So I do think this is a trend that's with us to stay for the reasons I mentioned. And typically, as supply chains get localized, it does represent opportunities for smaller businesses. So that is something I would encourage folks to keep top of mind.
Okay. Michael, is there anything, when I think about, all of the access that you've had to entrepreneurs across the country and people who are doing really interesting things, is there anything that's been surprising that you wouldn't have predicted, or any industry even that's, done something interesting or pivoted in a interesting way that kind of came out of left field that you wouldn't have?
Most of those types of changes that I've seen have been really manufacturers redirecting, reorienting what they do to contribute to the PPE crisis that we had. So you hear about vodka companies getting into the sanitizer business. The kind of suit I'm wearing now, my tailor, got into the kind of mask business. And many examples of that where companies are able to kind of take advantage of their operating setup to participate in new markets. And you do see some companies that are able to take advantage of new export opportunities, and especially, frankly, as the situation in Asia becomes much more stable in public health terms than what we're dealing with. I think those export markets are going to become a much more important part of our economic mix than they were for the past 6 or 7 months.
Yes. Michael, I have a question that I would love to hear your response to as we approach the upcoming holiday season. So holidays are certainly an important time for many small and medium businesses. Is there anything that you think we should be expecting this year during this time, or anything that may be a little bit different that we should probably be prepared for?
Nothing that I'm thinking of or have heard of. I think the support programs that are in place will probably continue for as long as the government determines the need is there. So I don't expect anything particularly new on that front. So I don't have any particularly insightful views on that with respect to new things happening between now and Christmas.
I wonder if we'll see Canadians as mobile as we have in the past, or with the impact, maybe, as you mentioned, certainly the air industry, I suppose, which we'll expect to feel kind of the fallout of that.
Yeah.
I would like to just pause again and just ask if anyone has a question that they would like to ask Michael or put something forward. Please feel free to do so in our chat. Michael, is there anything that you would like to share, or I provide you an opportunity to really kind of drive home, for our entrepreneurs who are with us this afternoon?
No, and again, if there are questions, I'd love to turn to them. If there aren't, that's fine as well. You could contact kind of Stephen and Mike and our teams who are local. But I just, again, encourage everybody to kind of be resilient. We're going to get through this. Make sure you manage your businesses with the kind of discipline you've always shown, especially for those of you that are in sectors that are going to take a while to recover. And let's work together. And I think AnnMarie, you and the Board of Trade and other organizations play a great role to kind of keep the glue that brings us all together. So let's help each other, let's support each other, let's buy from each other. And together, I think as a community of entrepreneurs, we'll find a way to get through this.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. And I know I can speak for myself and my colleagues. We very much value the partnership that we have with BDC and with your team here. BDC, of course, is an important silver partner of ours. And I think, we certainly realize the benefit and the expertise that we receive through even the thought leadership and the industry, the articles and research that you provide and share with us so that we can share with our members. We do have a question from someone who is joining us this afternoon around if there are any opportunities to get involved with BDC, or if there are any volunteer opportunities or anything that people in the community can be doing to associate with your organization.
Well, I'd encourage the person who asked that question to contact either Mike Ball or Stephen Barker, because there's so many ways in which we try to connect and support entrepreneurs. Again, sometimes it's via a loan, sometimes it's via an investment, but there's so many networking, advisory types of roles that we play or position others to play, that I'd encourage this person just to reach out so that we can get to know kind of him or her and vice versa, and see what comes of it. But right now, there's so many ways that we're trying to make a difference, that having folks to work alongside us is a real benefit to us. So we certainly welcome that conversation.
Well, we will certainly pass that along for anyone who inquires.
Especially with the handle "Cash is King." That's a good handle.
Yes, it certainly is. Well, I think, Michael, I think you've shared quite a bit of intel with us and have given us a lot of advice and a lot of the benefit of your experience for us to think about, and certainly for anyone who's joining us today for them to action. So I really appreciate your time, and I want to thank you and your team for making this opportunity available for our membership. Michael, we did just get a question come in, if you don't mind, we can kind of keep going. But there is I'm reviewing it as we speak here, Michael. Do you feel there's still a place for DEI consulting given SMEs are looking to save on expenses?
What's DEI?
That's what I'm going to ask right now as well. I'm not sure if we've lost our...
Diversity, equity, inclusion consulting.
Oh, yes. Okay.
So the question is there an opportunity for diversity, equity, inclusion consulting, given that kind of given the economic times we're in?
Yeah.
I wholeheartedly think that there is, and I would like to think that, especially now, every entrepreneur is either the growth-oriented ones are looking for ways to grow. The ones that are in tough sectors need creativity to continue. And I do think, as a result, the market for talent and really good talent is going to be there. And I wholeheartedly believe that you need to have a diverse workforce and a diverse culture, a diverse workforce and an inclusive culture in order to actually behave at your best. So I do think that, and I've had a lot of conversations with Black entrepreneurs, a lot of conversations with women entrepreneurs and Indigenous entrepreneurs and their communities. And I do think that insofar as talent's going to be so important right now, I think all businesses, all entrepreneurs need to embark on the next few months with a real open-mindedness around inclusion and diversity, because that's going to allow them to get the talent they need to really take advantage of the opportunities and get through this. So that's my personal view on the topic.
Well, I thank you for sharing that. I know this may feel a little bit, you just touched on it, and I can't help but pause in the sense that it is such an important conversation and one we're hearing, but the conversation around talent right now is real. And I know, throughout a global pandemic, people aren't probably necessarily looking or feeling that now's the time to make a move, but is there any sort of, even thoughts from your personal philosophy on that piece right now that you would share with, people who are seeking opportunities, as well as entrepreneurs who are thinking about, certainly having that top talented team right now?
Yeah, I think for the my lens on this is for really good entrepreneurs, almost regardless of the unemployment rate, what have you. They're always in the market for the top talent. They're always looking to kind of upgrade, hire, improve, et cetera. And as a result, it's really important for companies to have, use a bit of a jargon now, but have an employee value proposition. So what is it that they offer to potential employees? Why should a potential employee join your company? So when you think about things like telework, you think about an inclusive environment, you think about kind of wellness, you think about just the kind of dynamism and the challenges that you put to your people. All those things are always extremely important. And I don't think they ebb and flow based on the kind of unemployment rate or the state of the market, because good companies are always looking for good people. Good people always have options. So this employee value proposition is always critical. So again, it's not something that was highlighted as a result of the research, because it is something that's with us all the time. But I'm glad you raised the topic, AnnMarie, because it's something we can't lose, especially for the best entrepreneurs. We can't lose sight of this, because this is the formula for success.
Well, I thank you for sharing that with us. I think we've answered all of the questions that have came in. I think personally, I would say you've given me a lot to think about, and I'm always glad to have an opportunity, as I'm sure everyone who's joining us this afternoon, to hear a little bit of what's happening outside Atlantic Canada, and then how does Atlantic Canada kind of stack up against that. So I really appreciated the study as well, and we'll share a link to that research report as well, because I think that survey was very helpful and certainly full of a lot of really useful insight. Will you go out and do that again, Michael? Will there be a plan? Will you repeat that?
We will do a version of it, yes. So
okay.
Frankly, we've been doing research every couple of weeks that basically tracks the mood of entrepreneurs going back to mid-March. It's been a very interesting evolution. So we're constantly researching. And whether we'll do exactly what we did again, not sure, but I encourage people to kind of stay in touch through bdc.ca, because typically every few weeks there's something new and interesting based on our research that we make available. Okay,
so a site to bookmark for all of us. Well, thank you, Michael. Thank you for taking the time and for sharing all of this knowledge with us this afternoon.
AnnMarie, thank you, and thanks everybody. Enjoy the rest of the day, and best of luck to you.